Good afternoon, everyone. It's my pleasure to welcome you all for today's event with His Excellency Dr. Musalia Mudavadi, Prime Cabinet Secretary and Cabinet Secretary for Foreign and Diaspora Affairs of the Republic of Kenya. Dr. Mudavadi brings extensive experience from a very long career in public service. Over the years, he had a number of senior cabinet roles, including serving as Kenya's seventh Vice President in 2002, and later as Deputy Prime Minister and Minister of Local Government. And he has also served as Minister for Finance, Agriculture, Transport, and Information. So quite a long career in public service, as well as currently being the principal, one of the principals of the governing Kenyan Kwanza Alliance coalition. So a lot of experience and a lot we can talk about in this event. Very welcome, Your Excellency. Welcome back, I should say. You were here in December 2023.
That's right.
When Bronwyn hosted you here for a discussion on Kenya's foreign policy imperatives. You may remember. It's very well overdue that we have a second conversation, given how the global context has dramatically changed since you were last here. But before we begin, just a quick reminder to everyone that this session is fully on the record, which means you're very welcome to use the information as well as quotes attributed to the speaker or participants. And you're very welcome to also use social media, engage on social media. You can use the hashtag #CHAfrica. For those joining us virtually, via Zoom and virtually, very welcome as well. And we want this to be as engaging as possible. So please do feel free to send your questions using the Q&A box. And we'll try to bring a selection of questions. His Excellency wants to answer as many questions as possible, wants to know what you're asking, so please keep them coming. Your Excellency, the floor is yours.
Okay.
15-20 minutes presentation. You're very welcome to do it sitting or from the lectern.
Okay, I'd rather stand.
Sure.
Okay. Madam Tigsti Amare, Director of the Africa Program at Chatham House and Chair of today's event. Distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
I am grateful for your invitation to address this gathering and appreciate your warm welcome here at Chatham House in London. But of course, it's not warm outside. It is a great honor to engage with you on Africa's urgency within a rapidly mutating global geopolitical landscape. In this context, my address will focus on Kenya's expanding foreign policy interests in a changing world order and how our state is recalibrating its diplomacy to navigate the evolving global dynamics. At the onset, allow me to briefly comment on the weighty crisis confronting the Middle East and the wider world before delving into the subject of my engagement with you. I convey the condolences of the government and people of Kenya to the families of those who have been killed and comfort those who have been impacted by the unprecedented war. We also call for the protection of civilians and join the international community in urging de-escalation by the warring parties. We believe that long-standing multilateral institutions offer the only and best frameworks for resolving the violent conflict in the Middle East. Certainly, the established principles of diplomacy, including peaceful conduct of international relations, negotiations and mutual reciprocity, should now take precedence as they are more vital than ever for safeguarding global stability and advancing development for shared prosperity. Kenya has not aligned with any party in the Middle East crisis. It has consistently called for de-escalation, dialogue, multilateral engagement, and adherence to the international law. We remain a neutral and principled voice advocating for peace, restraint, humanitarian protection, and international legality. We also focused on the safety and well-being of more than 500,000 Kenyan nationals living, working, and studying in the Middle East. The more prolonged the violence and insecurity, the more the harm, especially if traffic through the Strait of Hormuz remains blocked. Disruptions to energy supply, air travel, and trade will have greater ramifications economically and security-wise. Clearly, our region is still battling with terrorism, and it must remain vigilant during this crisis. The Middle East war, like other global crises, including COVID-19 and the Russia-Ukraine violent conflict, reinforces the need for African states to diversify supply chains, and more importantly, accelerate integration, including the full realization of the objectives of the African Continental Free Trade Area. Additionally, we must accelerate the transition to renewable energy. Let us reimagine the future. If Africa were powered by clean energy, including solar, geothermal, and hydro, would the Middle East crisis carry the same distressing impact? The overlap of the Red Sea crisis and the closure of the Strait of Hormuz, which handles 20% of global oil, signals a looming crisis and potential anarchy. We appeal to the Organization of the Petroleum Exporting Countries to help diffuse the tensions and be considerate of the looming crisis facing African countries from the impact of the Middle East war. Sudan's dire humanitarian crisis, which was drawing international attention, or at least beginning to, now risks receding into another era of a forgotten conflict as global attention shifts away to Middle East, as was the case during the Gaza and Russia-Ukraine conflicts. Now, let me get back to today's theme. My presentation is structured around three key areas. First, our understanding of the current global environment. Two, Kenya's response to the changing world order. And three, Kenya's expanding foreign policy interests. Let me begin by looking at the evolving global environment. Today, international relations stand at a historic turning point. The global balance of power is changing as new alliances emerge. Old rivalries resurface, and middle as well as emerging powers continue to assert influence. Apparently, we have entered into a more complex, perilous, and contentious of diplomacy, such as peaceful coexistence, negotiations, sovereign equality, and mutual reciprocity. In the process, the foundational values of international relations, including human rights, inclusive, rule-based global order, and shared prosperity are waning. The implications of these global changes are most felt in the global south, particularly in Africa. The net effect is disrupted economic growth, escalating conflicts, a new scramble for critical minerals, and resurgence of Cold War-style geopolitics. Furthermore, democratic governance is increasingly coming under strain, marked by a troubling rise in unconstitutional changes of government. Altogether, these global trends threaten peace and security and erode Africa's hard-won economic development gains. In this moment of global turbulence, African states face a twofold strategic choice: either to transform their immense potential into strategic influence on the global stage, or to remain at the geopolitical periphery as passive actors and perpetual recipients of international assistance. Africa must deliberately transform its immense potential in technology, digital innovation, critical minerals, natural resources, and youthful population into geoeconomic influence and an assertive international voice. What is Kenya's strategic response to this changing world order? As the global environment gets more intricate, Africa must engage more in South-to-South cooperation to strengthen solidarity, advance self-reliance, and develop collective resilience against global uncertainty. For Kenya, these shifts are not abstract phenomena. They are lived realities that shape our development prospects, influence our security dynamics, and redefine the parameters of our diplomatic engagement. In response to the evolving international landscape, Kenya advocates for continental peace, promotes Pan-Africanism, advances intra-Africa trade, and deeper regional integration. We embrace a multi-alliance approach that balances national interests with diversified international partnerships without ascribing to competing geopolitical and ideological narratives. Kenya is simply looking for opportunities and diversifying relations in a pragmatic manner, clearly guided by our national interests. Our aim is not to take sides, but to choose mutually beneficial paths, a significant trade surplus, and encouragingly, intra-African, East African trade expanded by 24.5% in the second quarter of 2025 to reach $4.6 billion. At the continental level, Kenya's diplomatic engagement prioritizes trade facilitation, infrastructure development, and connectivity, and the operationalization of the Africa Continental Free Trade Area as a vehicle for industrial growth and competitiveness. In February 2026, just last month, during the 39th ordinary session of the African Union Assembly, Kenya's President William Ruto underscored the importance of ensuring national policies do not become unintended barriers to continental integration. He emphasized that this is a critical moment to advance free movement of persons and build, especially in borderlands, generate wealth and collective prosperity for our peoples rather than trigger conflict and disunity. Security remains central to our regional engagement. Kenya continues to support peace processes and mediation efforts across the greater Horn of Africa. We hold that Africa should be at the center of its own solutions. Africa-led peace initiatives should be respected and supported as per the principle of subsidiarity. Too often, conflicts persist because international attention. Africa Forward Summit 2026 with France in Nairobi from 11th to 12th May 2026, under the theme Africa-France Partnership for Innovation and Growth. The summit will be the first to be hosted in a non-Francophone African country. And this underscores the growing Pan-African and inclusive character of Africa's partnership with France. It will showcase Africa's innovation and talent, foster co-investment, and generate ideas to shape future industrial transformations. It is worth noting that Kenya signed the Economic Partnership Agreement with the European Union in Nairobi on 18th December 2023. This agreement came into force on 1st July 2024, granting duty-free and quota-free access for Kenyan exports to the 18 trillion euro market of the 27 member states. Also, China-Africa relations are transitioning beyond the primary focus on aid and infrastructure towards enhanced trade and investment. The announcement by China of zero tariff treatment for African countries marks an important milestone. Kenya is engaging constructively to actualize these commitments in line with other international obligations. Kenya is prioritizing local manufacturing, value addition, and technology transfer. At the annual Raisina talks in India, in which I participated before coming here, discussions focused on global realignments, including maximization of African economic and demographic potential. Historically, Europe, mainly the European Union, has been Africa's leading trading partner. But over the years, Africa's trade patterns have notably shifted, with Asian partners, mainly China and India, emerging as the main trading partners. As part of diversifying the foreign policy priorities, Kenya's partnership with the Gulf states, including the United Arab Emirates, reflects the expanding South-to-South cooperation across logistics, renewable energy, financial services, and agricultural value chains. These partnerships reinforce our commitment to a multi-directional foreign policy anchored in adaptability, diversification, and mutually beneficial partnerships. The icing on the cake is a testament of how Kenya's expanded foreign policy has contributed to its socio-economic transformation journey, anchored on the bottom-up economic transformation agenda. Economic data show the country has stabilized since 2023 after a year of upheavals that included high inflation, foreign exchange crisis, and high costs of basic food commodities in 2022 to 2023. Growth in gross domestic product, that's the GDP, improved from 4.7% in 2024 to an estimated 5% in 2025, driven by strong recovery in construction, mining, agriculture, and tourism sectors. Inflation declined to 4.5% at the end of 2025, from a high of over 9% the previous year. Forex reserves rose earlier this month to USD 14.6 billion, a new record equivalent to 6.2 months of import cover. Expanded and diversified trade partnerships, together with high diaspora remittances that hit close to $5 billion in 2025, have helped Kenya to maintain a stable exchange rate, which has greatly improved in business confidence and economic outlook. Kenya will continue to pursue a balanced, inclusive, and progressive diplomacy in the rapidly changing complex world order, We will champion equitable economic growth, climate justice, digital transformation, and peace building. We reject the notion that African states are passive arenas for external competition. Rather, we are strategic actors capable of shaping our outcomes, building coalitions, and contributing meaningfully to global stability and prosperity. The world order may be evolving, but our commitment to responsible global citizenship remains constant. Kenya stands ready to engage, to partner, and to lead, guided by the conviction that a more representative and stable international system is both necessary and achievable. I thank you. Before I sit down, let me take the questions. Let me take this moment to just acknowledge that in our midst we have Kenya's new High Commissioner. Ambassador Maurice Makolo. He came in from Austria, so he's about a month old, 2 months old. And next to him is Ed Barnett, who's holding post for the UK in Nairobi. Thank you for being here. I also want to really take this opportunity to acknowledge that the Foreign Secretary, Yvette Cooper, has been so gracious to us. We came in for the Commonwealth Foreign Ministers meeting, and she's run the issues very, very well. So let me take this opportunity to express Kenya's appreciation and my personal appreciation for her hospitality. Thank you.
Thank you. A state in the region, but also an important interlocutor for the continent globally. This role becomes even more important for all the reasons that you have outlined. And but it can't do it all. No few countries can do it all to really uphold the interests and priorities of the African continent, which seem to be many. You've listed some of them. We keep on talking about an African leadership, like the more cohesion, more coming together. Where is this leadership going to come from, and what is the role Kenya can help also in terms of creating that cohesion?
Well, the leadership must come from the Africans themselves. I kept on speaking to some other engagement, and I said, for instance, if we want strong multilateralism, it will be as strong as the countries that make that institution. And the strength of those countries or that country also depends on whether that country itself values the rule of law and engages in principled and good practices, constitutionalism and so forth. Because if we are strong as nations in terms of the proper values, then we are going to make a better global community, whether in the context of the African Union or whether in the context of the United Nations or any other entity that has a global fitting. So if you ask where will this leadership come from Africa, it must come from the Africans themselves. We have a young population. There are a lot of leading examples that we can see in terms of disruption, the conflicts, and so forth. So we really have to organize ourselves. And therefore, I just repeat, the leadership must come from the Africans themselves. It must be homegrown. And we have an opportunity. Yes.
And it's great that you mention the African youth. Again, going back to Kenya's role as a regional stabilizer as well as an international interlocutor, but that has to face also the national pressures, the demand for jobs, economic growth. We were talking earlier about the need for improving infrastructure, the sad floods that have caused many lives, 23 or 27 in Kenya, just on the news at the moment. And so how do you balance the national calls for accountability for delivery with that international role Kenya has?
Well, first of all, let me just say that the need for job creation is absolutely paramount. As I said in my remarks, when you look at the demographics, the urgent pressure is from the younger population, better equipped, better networked. So we have to have policies that will rapidly address and focus on this particular challenge or opportunity or advantage that we have as a continent. So for Kenya, looking at how do we create jobs, technology is one way. We want to leverage a lot on technology. For instance, if we were to get the young people back to agriculture and food production, you must add a sweetener, and the sweetener is technology. If you give them an opportunity to utilize their innovative capacity and the requisite technology, they are likely then to find interest in that kind of direction. So that is one key lever. We have to invest in good governance. Kenya, for instance, recently we took a bold step and working with the IMF, we decided to have a governance diagnostic so that we can look at how we are managing ourselves, get an independent eye to look at our systems and how we are performing. And from there, we can see where we are going wrong and what corrective areas. So governance becomes an issue so that we are able to deal with corruption, wastage, and that objective third eye is very, very important for us to look at where we are going. We also have been subscribing to peer review mechanisms, both in the context of the African Union and in other entities, so that we have clear room to reflect on whether our policies are having the desired impact or they're not. Then we have to direct our resources to the critical areas of infrastructure, health, education. So to me, that becomes critical. Then job creation, we are having pressure as a country. That is why we have critical programs like the affordable housing that is taking place in Kenya today, because there's a huge deficit in housing. But we have established a housing levy, and there's an accelerated program to deal with that deficit, but at the same time, making sure that there's a lot of local content to be inputted into this program so that we can assist in generating jobs. The third component is really to deal with how we can encourage Kenyans to also have an opportunity outside. So we've been signing up to bilateral labor agreements with some of our partners. And I quoted a figure, for instance, in the Middle East, we have close to 500,000 Kenyans out there working. And there are others who wish to engage in other countries. We have to do it, and we have to do it in a structured manner, because we're also facing situations where in certain instances, not the majority, but a few instances where we are also getting distress calls of Kenyans who have landed into trouble in other parts of the world. So I could go on and on, but I just wanted to pick a few, but to really acknowledge that the need for job creation is paramount for us.
Thank you. Well, let's go to our audience now. It's your opportunity to ask questions. Please do raise your hand, and we'll try to get 2 or 3 at a time so that we have an opportunity to get... I'll start the gentleman next to you, Georgia. Thank you.
Thanks very much. Johnny Oates, member of the House of Lords and co-chair of our all-party parliamentary group on Africa, also CEO of a not-for-profit called United Against Malnutrition and Hunger. Thank you for your excellent presentation. There's so many questions I'd love to ask you, but I'll be disciplined. Could you just give us an assessment, your assessment of current state of UK-Kenyan relations, and what are the things you think the UK could do most effectively to develop effective partnerships with furtherly effective partnerships with Kenya and other countries on the continent? Thanks.
Thank you. This second person here. The lady. No, the lady was it.
Hi, Ruyan Liu from King's College London. I'm just wondering how the outbreak of South Sudan's internal conflict would affect Kenya's leadership or contribution to the regional peace. Thank you.
Yeah, and finally,
Thank you. Thank you, Dr. Mudavadi. First of all, I should acknowledge your recognition as someone who has been a peacemaker and a uniting figure in the Kenyan political discourse, especially after the sudden death of Raila Odinga. So thank you for that. My name is Shemi. I'm a lawyer based in London, New York. I've specialized in international law, but also a journalist. But I have a special place in Kenya because my wife is Kenyan and I'm originally from Uganda, so I know the area very well. Just a couple of points. One is that...
questions.
Yeah, quick questions, yes.
Just one question, please.
Yes. You've touched on human rights. There's and the presence of around 500,000 Kenyans in the Middle East, but there are more millions coming from East Africa. So do you have a coordinated position to repatriate